Cody Rhodes has become one of the most popular wrestlers in the WWE, and he seems ready to be the champion. But in reality, his quest to touch the stars is the dream of a lifetime. Over a period of about 20 years, the son of the great Dusty Rhodes had an incredible journey, where he sometimes was a golden boy of the business with a destiny all mapped out, sometimes a second fiddle, condemned to live in the shadow of his legendary father. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise for this series where we dive together into the story of the American Nightmare, the one who, in WWE, went from undesirable to undeniable. In the previous episode that you should absolutely watch, we saw how Cody Rhodes was born into one of wrestling's royal families, how he finally got into the business after trying his luck in Hollywood, and then how he was propelled into the main roster at Monday Night Raw while he was still very young, but that he was able to benefit from the valuable, although sometimes chaotic mentoring of Randy Orton by being part of the legacy. In this new episode, you will discover, among other things, how Cody reinvented himself by being inspired by the movie American Psycho, how WWE didn't want to set up his dream match at WrestleMania 31, and how he experienced in every detail Dusty Rhodes' final hours before his death. But also how an exchange with the writer whom he almost hit encouraged him to leave Vince McMahon's company. All the secrets behind the creation of the American Nightmare character, and even how a simple tweet from journalist Dave Meltzer led to the foundation of WWE's biggest rival in years. And you will never guess the almost supernatural interaction he had with Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2017, or why he already had some hate towards Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins years before he met them in the ring. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, Cody Rhodes, the prodigal son's quest to touch the stars, episode 2, here we go! Between 2010 and 2014, Cody Rhodes' career will go through a phase where he will have several gimmicks and try to find himself. The legacy has been dissolved and he is at the crossroads where he needs an impulse. In April 2010, Cody was drafted to SmackDown, and it was going to be an opportunity for him to start his new character a few weeks later, Dashing Cody Rhodes. After winning a poll among the WWE divas who named him the most handsome wrestler, he becomes a narcissist character who is obsessed with his physical perfection and who gives beauty tips in some hilarious vignettes. I was a fan of the gimmick. He was very protective of his face and we had some really neat elements. He had a mirror on the back of his jacket. In his entrance, the Minitron showed his reflection live when he looked at himself, just like in a mirror. The theme song Smoke and Mirrors was great. He had a beautiful DC logo. His vignettes were also funny with very cliché and extreme pictures of the human body. At that moment, I think Cody showed that he was able to play a character in which he could have been completely ridiculous, but not at all. He was comfortable with it. As he will say himself, he was very happy to have his own gimmick, his own creation. This time, it came neither from being the son of Dusty Rhodes, nor from being the member of a clan with Randy Orton. It was really his. Doing this gimmick, he will be Husky Harris's pro, the future Bray Wyatt, on the NXT show, which will be an opportunity for him to blame him for being physically average, for having dirty hair, ugly tattoos. Husky will be eliminated in the 11th week in a show that will be won by Caval. And he will also form a tag team with Drew McIntyre and even win the tag team championship together at Night of Champions in September 2010. Given this history, it also makes us want to see him have a rivalry with Drew in the present. It could be deep since both of them have gone through a lot since then. The only thing that Cody regretted at that time, and it goes into the idea that even if he plays it very well, it's difficult to take his character seriously to win the WWE title, for example, is that his role is mostly comedic and fun. One day before their match, he went to see the Big Show and told him that he would like to be more serious. At that moment, Big Show told him to go get over, and then he left the room. In any case, Cody seems to have found a character he likes and who corresponds to him, but in January 2011, something will happen that will turn everything upside down. In a match against Rey Mysterio, he takes the finisher of the Luchador, the 619, and it breaks his nose. His face, which was his absolute obsession and which no one had the right to touch, was suddenly disfigured. Well, actually not really, but he's going to play around that to add some depth to his character, and this time become Undashing Cody Rhodes. He will wear a transparent mask, a hood, pretending that he had to do surgery, and after a while he will even give bags to cover the faces to people in the audience that he finds ugly, or the one of his opponents after winning, which was very original, we must admit. For the record, he had contacted the doctor who did the mask for the basketball player Richard Hamilton to make his own, and created his character inspired by the one of Patrick Bateman in the movie American Psycho, which was brilliantly embodied by Christian Bale. Cody loved this gimmick and thinks it's one of the best things of his career. I thought he was really good in his promos. His acting was great, where he perfectly played this guy who is crazy about not being handsome anymore, when we could clearly see under his mask that his face had nothing at all, which was absurd, but on the contrary, showed that this character mostly had a mental problem in reality. It's a gimmick that will work for him, because not only will he have freedom and have fun, but he will also beat Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 27, the first singles match of his career in a pay-per-view, which is still significant, a real first step. In this match against the Luchador, I must say that I think it's great to use a remix of his theme song Smoke and Mirrors, but in a darker version and adapted to the character. In his appearance, we noticed that he didn't have an elbow pad, and for him, it was another step forward in his history at the grandest stage of them all, since after participating in the ECW Battle Royal in 2008 in the pre-show, and then a triple threat in 2010, he had a one-on-one match at the Showcase of the Immortals. In his entrance, Cody's acting was excellent. He wanted to hide and push the camera away because he was ashamed of his appearance. He clearly lived his gimmick, it's undeniable, and it was very interesting to see him in a deeper register. With the Rey Mysterio dressed as Captain America and this undashing version of Cody, who could very well have been an antagonist in a superhero story, we would have thought we were in the middle of a comic book. In any case, with this attitude that had absolutely nothing to do with the Legacy era, we can only appreciate Cody's reinvention. In his way of wrestling that day, we felt that he wanted to hurt Rey, that he wanted to take his revenge by making him suffer. At one point, he held Rey in the air while being on the second rope for several seconds, before destroying him with a superplex. What is also remarkable about this match is that despite his role as a heel and the one of Mysterio who was the babyface, it is indeed Cody's name that the fans will sing on various occasions. During the match, he will manage to counter the 619 the first time, before losing his mask and taking the finisher of the Luchador, who will even put on Cody's mask to attack him. He will nevertheless succeed in hitting him with the knee brace and will win thanks to his crossroads. He beat Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania. However, he barely celebrates it since he will hide his face after his victory, and it is remarkable on Cody's part to have stayed in character and to have therefore respected kayfabe despite his joy of having won. The funny thing is that for years, fans have asked Cody if he really had a broken nose, but to that, he prefers to say that he no longer remembers and keep the mystery. Nevertheless, he remembers that his father had taken a picture of him on that day, a moment when Dusty was undoubtedly proud of his son. However, a few months later, in June 2011, he had a tag team match on SmackDown where there was also Ted DiBiase Jr. that Cody considers the worst match of his life. On that day, the finish came earlier than expected, with Ted who had not managed to get out of a pinfall and will be extremely angry at the referee backstage. While Vince McMahon was overwhelmed by this failed match and was about to lecture Cody and his colleagues, Ted yelled in a vulgar, but above all, incorrect wording in terms of language that the referee had tried to F on him. And hearing this, Vince sat down and moved on. It is when he was undashing that he will win the first singles belt of his career, the Intercontinental title, by beating Ezekiel Jackson on SmackDown on August 12, 2011. It made Cody very happy, because it was the title that idols from his youth, like Ricky Steamboat and the Macho Man Randy Savage, had won too. He will also ask for the belt to be white, as it once was. And at that moment, Cody will have high hopes for the future, and it's understandable. Traditionally, this belt is a kind of step to test the superstar to potentially become WWE champion after that. So, it was a sign that the officials believed in him, and that he was maybe on his way to the dream of his life, the belt he promised his father. He also wanted to give prestige and value back to this championship. So in terms of mindset, everything was there to become the next superstar who will carry the company on his back. In November 2011, he will have a street fight against his mentor and friend, Randy Orton, where he will have his mask broken, and after that, he will no longer be undashing. Like the Legacy a year and a half before, Cody regrets that this gimmick did not last longer. But it wasn't necessarily a punishment from the WWE either, because in this time, he will still keep his Intercontinental title for 233 days, a real win. In a more classic outfit, without a mask, he will have a good performance in the 2012 Royal Rumble, being the one who eliminated the most wrestlers, 6, and stayed in the match for 41 minutes and 57 seconds, the second best performance of the evening. Then he will lose his title at WrestleMania 28 against The Big Show, in a rivalry where he was making fun of him. For the record, years before, when Cody was still a child, his father had introduced him to The Big Show at the time of WCW by making him believe that his name was Gunt, something that the Giant was not a fan of, apparently. Cody remembers that on that day, The Big Show's hand was 3 times the size of his. And in 2012, it was this man who took the first singles title of his career from him. At that moment, I asked myself a question. Do we have the first sign here that WWE doesn't believe in him so much and does not consider him valuable enough to have more? In any case, according to rumors, there were really talks of him winning the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2011 and also in 2012, each time for a potential cash-in on the heavyweight champion. But each time, the officials changed their minds on the day of the show, to instead give it to Daniel Bryan in 2011 and then to Dolph Ziggler in 2012. We can wonder why WWE didn't fully bet on Cody at that time. Had he not shown that he was able to make the best of not-so-easy gimmicks? What if Vince McMahon secretly wanted to punish him for being the son of Dusty Rhodes, one of his competitors for years in the past? Anyway, it's a new step back for Cody, who is moving away from his ultimate dream by no longer having his dashing and undashing gimmicks, nor his Intercontinental belt. But he doesn't quit and will reinvent himself once again. In September 2012, with his colleague Damien Sandow, they became the Rhodes Scholars. We see Cody with a mustache who, with his partner, will embody an intellectual elite who wants to save everyone from their stupidity. It's quite funny and entertaining, but I have a strong opinion on it. It was strictly condemned to stay in the mid-card of the shows, to entertain the fans. Cody could have never become champion with a gimmick like this. It will only last a few months before they parted ways, remaining good friends. In the end, their highlight will not even be a belt, but rather a segment with The Rock on SmackDown on January 11th, 2013. They were supposed to have a tag team match at WrestleMania 29, but even that was cancelled due to a lack of time. Clearly, Cody was much less popular at that moment. But yet, wasn't it WWE that took away 2 great gimmicks that he had created and loved from him, in which he was brilliant? After that, Rhodes will see his former colleague Sandow win the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2013, in a pay-per-view where his friend Randy Orton will win the other briefcase and soon turn heel by stealing the title from Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, a show in which Cody will beat Sandow, whose briefcase he had thrown in the Gulf of Mexico. On September 2nd, 2013, Triple H fired him from WWE, in kayfabe of course, after a loss against Randy Orton, and it was the opportunity for Dusty Rhodes' son to have his honeymoon with his sweetheart that he had just married, Brandy Weed, known for having worked with WWE under the name Eden, where she was an announcer. It was Dusty, by the way, who told Cody about this girl for the first time, when he was helping the young wrestlers of Florida Championship Wrestling, WWE Developmental at that time. He told him that there was a girl there with beautiful eyes. A little bit of sunshine in this complicated period. He will nevertheless live one of the most beautiful moments of his career at Battleground on October 6, where, with his brother Goldust and under the eyes of their father, they will regain their jobs by defeating 2 of the 3 members of The Shield, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Who could have believed at that moment that they would be his future opponents at WrestleMania almost 10 years later? I would like to point out that this moment of communion of Dusty with his 2 sons at the end of this match was really touching. It was also very shortly before his death, and it's beautiful that the 3 of them were able to share this. It was a real family triumph. Together with Goldust, they formed the Brotherhood, and will win the tag team title on October 14th on Raw against The Shield again. A title that Cody starts knowing too well, and that seems to be the best he can get. But from a relational standpoint, it was beautiful for them because they had few moments together in their real lives, considering that Dustin is 16 years older than him. And being a family on screen will help them also be a family behind the scenes. This is really a very significant moment for the Rhodes family, especially since we could learn that, in the past, there was a period of 5 years during which Dustin had not spoken to his father. We must nevertheless realize that Cody is vegetating in the mid-card of the shows, without any real project around him. In about 3 years, he has had no less than 5 different versions in the WWE. I think it was both because the company did not see a great future in his character, and because Rhodes had not yet found the gimmick in which he would be both good, but also a legit title candidate. In hindsight, I think that he would have deserved more between 2010 and 2012. Especially since at that time, guys like Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio aroused the enthusiasm of the officials, while yet, in my opinion, Cody Rhodes had nothing to envy them, except perhaps their more imposing physique. Once again, all this will last for a few months, until the Payback show on June 1st, 2014, where, after a loss together against Ryback and Curtis Axel, Cody ends their alliance, and will soon embody the one who will be his last character in the WWE. The final point of a long decline since 2012, Stardust. Do you want to discover the rest of Cody Rhodes' career, and in particular know all the details of the story that surrounds him? Don't worry, you will know everything by the end of the episode, and what he is going to do in his career may very well surprise you. On June 16, 2014, Cody Rhodes arrives on Monday Night Raw in a new disguise, a character who looks like his half-brother, Goldust. He gave it the same name as his father Dusty's private jet in the 80s, Stardust. This eccentric tag team will win the tag team belt on September 21st, 2014 against the Usos, a title that they will lose a few weeks later at Survivor Series. Basically, it was Stephanie McMahon, Vince's daughter, who suggested this idea while talking backstage with her father, who immediately loved it. For a while, Cody tries to make the best of it. He sees it as an opportunity to explore a new side of himself, and he will later admit that it was a valuable experience, even if he thought it would only last for a few months and that it didn't. He will even invest himself to the point of coming in full character outfit in interviews with the media, which other wrestlers rarely did. He really saw Stardust as a challenge, even if it wasn't fulfilling for him either. According to him, it went too far from what he wanted it to be. He will still continue to do his best, and at the beginning of 2015, with his half-brother, they have a dream. To have a match against each other at WrestleMania 31. They really had a unique opportunity to do it, as long as Dustin is still at his best level, and Dusty is still alive. Stardust will therefore attack Goldust several times, even shouting once backstage to his father that he had killed Cody Rhodes. Everything was put together to have a personal and deep confrontation at WrestleMania, but WWE is going to deny them this dream and instead set up this match a month before at Fastlane. When we see this memorable match of Cody against his brother, it's quite impressive to look at him and realize that this is the same person who was in the Legacy a few years ago. And for sure, we can't take away from Dusty's son that he was completely into this character. A rather surreal detail is that the Stardust character is announced as being from the 5th dimension, and it should be noted that during his entrance, he had stood on the barricade right in front of the spectators, which is quite original, just like the moment when he was on the top rope to wait for the match to start. In the way he moves, he really has an animal side that goes well with this weird creature that is Stardust, who sometimes spoke to himself. It is nevertheless true that it's still hard to take this match very seriously. On a personal level, I also think that an eccentric character is more highlighted against someone who is the opposite of him. Despite everything, it remains a very symbolic match, with Dusty also following it on the television backstage. But in these versions of the two brothers, it still seems complicated to see in this confrontation the stature and credibility of a WrestleMania matchup. Stardust will lose the match on the roll-up in a confrontation of less than 9 minutes, which will not have managed to invest the crowd. Life will then be even more cruel with Cody. On June 11, 2015, Cody receives a phone call from his mother. She's in the hospital with Dusty, who isn't doing well at all. The American Dream was struggling with stomach cancer, and on that day, he was suffering a lot. His mother, who's a nurse, understands that they are living their final hours with him. Cody recounts the scene by saying, "Dustin and I pulled him up together and spoke to him. I gave him a hug goodbye. The last thing he asked for was my mom. Then he went to sleep forever. I was there the entire time. Watching my light fade was the worst 20 hours of my life. That is a scene I never really left. I have tried and I do not want to stay in the past, but I still feel I am very much in that hospital room. When I lost him, I asked myself, who am I? During all these hours in the hospital, Cody said that he first prayed that his father would get out of it, but that he ended up praying that death would come to shorten his suffering. He witnessed all the agony of his hero, of his favorite person. Cody is going to be deeply affected by this tragedy. For him, it was a complete surprise for which he was not prepared at all. Later, he will tell that he feels Dusty at every show and that he misses him every day. It is more particularly when he is in the ring that he feels the most connected to his father, much more than where they scattered his ashes, which is why he will have the ritual of kneeling and kissing the ring at every match, a moment always very emotional for him. He will tell that the loss of Dusty will free him more in his decisions. For the first time, he will feel fully responsible for his choices. He remembers, for example, that a few years ago he wanted to put on pants in the ring, but that his father told him that it was for jobbers, whereas today Cody wrestles in this way and would never see himself back in black trunks like before. What is certain is that from now on he will not back down from strong decisions that he might not have made if his father was still here, and we will have the illustration of it in a few months. Unfortunately, Dusty will never see his two sons face off at WrestleMania, and especially he will never see his Cody bring him the WWE belt. At the memorial service for Dusty, Cody had the courage to do his father's eulogy in front of many wrestlers and legends. Ric Flair says about Cody's speech that any father would like to have his son talking about him in the way Cody did. In this eulogy, the son of the legend said of his father that he was a cowboy of the old republic, a master speaker who spit fire, a world-class family man. Cody encouraged everyone there to fight for their family and to not just have a dream, but an American dream. This period of his life will be very painful for him. He will confide that he didn't know how to handle it, how to deal with his mother, that it happened by surprise, that it was very hard to accept that Dusty will no longer be there to see what happens next. He will focus on loopholes, such as, for example, the purchase of the Masters of the Universe action figures that he will collect, on his Stardust character, on the purchase of a new house, and it is only a few months later that he will really truly mourn. Cody was relieved to be able to hide behind Stardust when he returned in July 2015, because he says he wouldn't have been able to be anything else than him, to already be the new head of the Rhodes family. He will have at that moment the most memorable time of this gimmick by having a rivalry with the actor Stephen Amell, the hero of the Arrow show, in which Cody will even play the role of the villain Derek Sampson in 2 episodes of season 5 and then will have a reappearance in season 7. It will culminate in a tag team match with King Barrett at SummerSlam against Stephen Amell and Neville. He will then be more and more unhappy by always being stuck in this character who's not going anywhere, who will even create an alliance with the tag team The Ascension that he calls Cosmic Wasteland, which could be the subtitle of his career at that time. Before dying, seeing his son in the Stardust character, Dusty Rhodes had called Cody's sister, telling her that Cody could never be world champion with this gimmick. While talking to his son, Dusty sees that his talent was wasted in the WWE and advised him to leave the company. But what really broke Cody's heart was that while his career was going nowhere, Dusty was working at NXT and training wrestlers like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins to become stars, which was driving Cody crazy, who felt left out. He had hatred towards Dusty's proteges, especially since they were nicknamed Dusty's children, something he took very badly. He says it's like his dad had a baseball team, but that he wasn't allowed to play in it. While Stardust was originally presented to him as a superhero, the reality was that he would never be a WWE champion with such a character, which was also Dusty's point of view. The latter hated Stardust and did not understand why WWE didn't see his son as a top star, although he was obviously not objective. He had even advised him to leave the company if he was not happy with his character, while Cody would most likely have preferred to come to NXT alongside Dusty's other proteges. As he told, it was a specific anecdote that definitely made Cody want to leave the WWE. In 2015, he sent a lot of emails to the writers, asking them all the time to put an end to the Stardust character and completely reset him, but he didn't receive any answer from them. One day, he got tired of it and went to one of the writers physically, but the latter completely ignored him. While Dusty Rhodes' son really didn't want to be Stardust anymore and wanted more than anything to start something new, the writer ignored him, and even worse. While the guy seemed too busy on his laptop to listen to Cody, the latter realized when he left that the computer was actually turned off, and that the writer was pretending to write in order to avoid Cody. A huge lack of respect that made him realize that it was time for him to leave. After that scene, he went to Triple H. He was really close to hitting the writer, and the game even told him that he should do it. In the end, he didn't do it, but on the other hand, he realized that WWE would never see him as the real star he thought he could be. At first, he didn't dare to quit, especially because he was afraid that his mother would disown him if he did. So he wanted to try to get fired. And with this in mind, in house shows, Cody would take a flask with whiskey mixed with an energy drink, sit in front of the monitor and drink, hoping to get caught by officials and get fired. But in the end, after almost 10 years in the Federation, he announced on May 21st, 2016 that he had asked WWE to end his contract, which was accepted. Anyway, where could Stardust have led him? What is certain is that by having been reduced to being this character for almost 2 years, everything that would follow would only be appreciated more. While he could have stayed and received a 6-figure salary, he preferred to take the risk of leaving and starting from scratch. And his mother even believed that he was going to die or end up in prison. At the age of 30, Cody is no longer in the WWE, no longer has his dad by his side, and is facing a major challenge. Managing to bounce back and not disappear from the radar after his departure from the company, a challenge in which he has seen many of his former colleagues fail. In his life, Cody Rhodes truly was at a crossroads, and prepared to be impressed by his incredible evolution. On May 28, 2016, a week after his departure from the WWE, Cody Rhodes publishes on Twitter a list of potential opponents that he would like to face that will receive a lot of attention. He also indicates that he will start this kind of big challenge that he is launching on August 19, when the 90-day non-competition clause of Vince McMahon's Federation that he is forced to respect will end. We can already see through this act, which generated a lot of buzz at the time, that Cody isn't upset at all about the situation, but on the contrary, he's determined to try new things, to improve, to work hard where he has never wrestled before, the independent circuit. This idea of publishing a list with all his goals was something that had never been done before by any wrestler, and it was very smart, because by doing this, it enabled fans to follow him on his journey, to want to see him tick all these boxes on the list. He himself says that he saw a lot of people fall into oblivion after they left the Stamford company, and that he wanted to do his best to avoid that. By not having achieved what he wanted in the WWE kingdom, he now had to create his own kingdom, his own brand, his own success. And it will lead to a new transformation of his character towards what will become the gimmick we know him in now, the American Nightmare. His look will change completely. In addition to having had a tattoo a few months before of the word Dream as a tribute to his father, and a future tattoo on the neck at the beginning of 2020 of his logo, Cody will have blonde hair, and he will have to dye them every 3 to 4 weeks. In fact, it's as if symbolically he's going to his father's look, and in the creation of his new outfits, he's going to make choices that suit him by being influenced by several of his characters from his favorite comic book, X-Men, Archangel, Mr. Sinister, Omega Red, and Cyclops. And finally, he adopts the nickname American Nightmare, a nod to the one of his father, the American Dream. We will note, moreover, that you can both interpret it as an extension of his father, a continuity of the heritage of the Rhodes family, but also an opposition to the Dream with the idea of the Nightmare, which also goes with his fate that is much more chaotic than Dusty's, and also with the idea that he may be darker inside, which is consistent since he will be a heel for a while. Cody explains this nickname by saying that he spent his entire career in the WWE trying to do everything differently from Dusty Rhodes, but that this gimmick had the advantage of being easily memorizable for fans who would not know him, especially in Japan where he will wrestle. He also liked this little nuance compared to Dusty because, unlike the Dream who went from poverty to wealth, he was rich and he was a spoiled kid, and he thought Nightmare suited him very well for that. All this change is nevertheless symbolically very interesting, because in a certain way, he no longer suffers the burden of being Dusty Rhodes' son by trying to make people forget about it as much as possible, but on the contrary, he accepts and claims this heritage now, while personalizing it with his own identity. Anyway, this is a period when he himself says that he has taken a step back and reflected on his life, his history, when he really grieved for his father. And he approaches the future at that moment with a lot of confidence, with the determination to create his own brand, and a lot of enthusiasm. But he admits that he himself did not expect that it would take such a magnitude. From the end of his non-competition clause, he will learn for several years in the indies, on the field, improve as a wrestler, make the choice to fill his schedule with all the shows he could. We'll pick as highlights of this period his integration into the rebel indie group of the Bullet Club, which includes in particular the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, with whom he will create the Elite, a group that will captivate fans at fill arenas around the world. He will become the Ring of Honor World Champion in 2017, the first world title of his career, and the NWAs in 2018. He will participate in the Battle of Los Angeles of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, have a rivalry at TNA against Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis with his wife Brandy, face Ricochet, Johnny Gargano, Kurt Angle, wrestle in Japan at New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it was the officials of that company who wanted him to become the American Nightmare. Be in the main event of the first NJPW show in the United States against Kazuchika Okada, the Japanese Randy Orton as he calls him. Hold the record for merchandise sold at the Tokyo Dome. And by the way, it is in this arena that he says he really found his American Nightmare character. A very rich initiatory journey with real achievements. A very symbolic scene will take place after the special show of the NJPW in the United States in Long Beach, California on July 2nd, 2017. While he has just faced Okada for the IWJP title, Cody is in the parking lot after the event, and suddenly Stone Cold Steve Austin appears out of nowhere, goes to tell him about his match. He had loved it. The people around couldn't believe that Stone Cold was at this show and will get closer and closer to Cody and the Texas Rattlesnake. But suddenly, Austin pats him on the shoulder and leaves walking in the shadows. Cody says that suddenly Stone Cold disappeared while he was only a few feet away, just like Batman. In any case, symbolically, in his initiatory journey, we can consider that he received the validation of one of the greatest legends of the business. A business that Cody will make an impact on even more. On September 1st, 2018, he sets up with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, the biggest independent show in history. The WrestleMania of the Indies, All In. A name that was found by Tail, Cody's sister. It all starts in May 2017, while Cody is at the gym, and at that moment he comes across a tweet from journalist Dave Meltzer, who says that, according to him, it is impossible that one day the Ring of Honor, the independent federation in which Cody was at that time, will be able to do a sold-out show in an arena with more than 10,000 fans, like Madison Square Garden, for example. Cody tells him that he's taking his bet and will prove him wrong. The 11,263 seats of this show, which will be like a Woodstock festival of wrestling and which will take place in Chicago, will be sold in 29 minutes and 36 seconds. Knowing that Cody and his friends wanted the prices to be affordable, with tickets starting at $25. And it will generate 50,000 pay-per-view buys and will bring together wrestlers from Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide, NWA, and TNA. It's really a ball of the indies, and Cody is clearly important in this success, since in addition to setting it up, he is in one of the main matches of the show against Nick Aldis, the NWA champion, who he is going to beat. This is the first non-WWE show to sell 10,000 tickets since 1993. So Cody made history, and this event will change everything. It will give hope to the American Nightmare and his friends that they can go even further and create an alternative company worthy of competing with the WWE. The adventures of Cody Rhodes after his departure from the McMahon Federation are in any case impressive. It has been a real school of life for him. He has found himself with a character that really suits him. He has become a real star by betting on himself, by multiplying experiences, and at that moment, he's ready to start the next big chapter of his career. The success of the All In event will arouse the interest of a certain Tony Khan, a billionaire who loves pro wrestling, and gradually Cody Rhodes and other of his friends join forces with him and create their own wrestling federation, All Elite Wrestling, on January 3rd, 2019, of which he will become one of the executive vice presidents. Inspired by All In's success, Cody and his colleagues therefore set themselves the challenge of becoming a real rival for the WWE, as Dusty Rhodes also was with WCW in the past. Rhodes will have a crucial role in the very first pay-per-view of AEW on May 25, 2019, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, since there will be the match that, according to Tony Khan, made the success of the Federation, and what will remain one of his favorite matches in his career. The one he dreamed of having 4 years before at WrestleMania. The one against Dusty Rhodes. Dave Meltzer will give this match 5 stars, and in an iconic and highly symbolic scene, Cody will destroy with a sledgehammer, Triple H's weapon of choice, one of the important people of the WWE, a throne, which is also a strong symbol, since one of Triple H's nicknames is also the King of Kings. And this is clearly a big message sent to the Stamford Federation. The match itself was the fratricidal battle they weren't able to have 4 years before. It's interesting to note that Cody will do the cartwheel and the gesture in the style of Stardust at some point, and that he had also done the figure 4 leg lock, the famous Ric Flair finisher, the one who was still one of Dusty Rhodes' biggest opponents. It was a bloody war, with force finishes, a classic sequence in pro wrestling where the two exchange punches, and after Cody's victory, the latter will eventually say that he needs his big brother, and they will hug. From there, he will be taking AEW to new heights, with in particular the launch of a weekly show from October 2nd, 2019, Dynamite, which will also beat WWE's NXT show in a Wednesday night ratings war. A show precisely directed by the cerebral assassin himself, Triple H. Overall, in his period at AEW, of which he also has a backstage management role, Cody Rhodes will get a new dimension. By having a memorable rivalry with MJF, for example, at the beginning of 2020, with the painful and incredible segments where he took 10 belt shots to earn the right to face him. By also becoming the first TNT champion in the history of the company in May 2020, since he refuses to compete for the main title. By doing an open challenge every week that will allow him to elevate guys who will even come from the outside, like Eddie Kingston for example. By having his own reality TV show with his wife Brandy, Rhodes to the Top. By having in December 2021 a mind-blowing match against Andrade, in which he will prove that he is a tough guy, since he will win by pinning him while his arm was still on fire after throwing himself on a burning table. And for the record, at AEW they will call the equivalent of the gorilla position, the backstage spot from where the officials watch the show, the Dusty position, a beautiful wink to his father. Years after Dusty, another Rhodes, the other wrestling royal family, became the main competitor of WWE. From a personal standpoint, Cody will also be upset by the passing of his friend Brody Lee, a former colleague from the WWE where he was Luke Harper, who had helped him a lot in the mourning of his father Dusty, since Brody had lost his own father when he was only 10 years old. They had a memorable dog collar match together after Cody agreed to lose in 3 minutes in a previous match against him to give maximum credibility to Brody, whom he had personally brought to AEW. A tragic event in which the American Nightmare will show his big heart by being present for Brody's son, Brody Jr., by even making him live beautiful moments on TV where he could be his character of -1. Brody's widow, Amanda Huber, will say that Cody is her son's favorite person, a touching side of the American Nightmare. In this period, Cody will also become a father for the first time on June 18, 2021, of a little girl called Liberty. This chapter at AEW has given Cody Rhodes a stature that will enable him to return with his head held high to the WWE, to finally try to become champion there and honor the promise he made to his father when he was 8 years old. On February 15, 2022, he announced that he and his wife Brandy were leaving All Elite Wrestling. He will say himself that he does not wish to elaborate about the reasons for his departure, that he wishes above all the success of this company, and in the end, seeing a few months later the backstage problems at AEW between CM Punk and his friends, we can think that Cody Rhodes was a centerpiece in the harmony and the success of this company. The fact of the matter is, I think this chapter has given him the stature of an undeniable main eventer. It's just too bad that AEW has never waged a more direct war against the WWE, by positioning itself against Monday Night Raw for example, which could have led to an even bigger revenge for Cody. He also says himself that at that time, he was really very generous by letting a lot of wrestlers beat him to put them over, that he didn't think about himself, but basically it's not a bad thing, because it shows his goodwill. All this initiatory journey between 2016 and 2022 shows that in reality, the American Nightmare needed a management that believed in him and gave him his chance, which Vince McMahon will finally end up doing. In the next episode, you will discover, among other things, the behind-the-scenes secrets of Cody's return to the WWE in 2022. The two main things he asked to Vince McMahon in their negotiation, and how he stupidly injured himself a few days before his Hell in a Cell match against Seth Rollins. But also how he sent messages to all the officials so that this match would not be cancelled. How he was involved in the least watched live Monday Night Raw of all time. And even how he made history at the 2024 Royal Rumble. Anyway, in this episode, we could see how Cody Rhodes had been deeply affected by the death of his father, and how he decided to leave Vince McMahon's company when he saw that the officials didn't believe in him. And then how, with the creation of the American Nightmare character and the All Elite Wrestling promotion, he totally revived himself, to the point of arousing the interest of his ex-employer. And I have a debate for you. Do you think he has all the qualities to be the face of the WWE? We invite you to come and give your opinion. It will be interesting to talk about it together in the comments and to share our points of view. We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?